again. We'll start with NCERT class 11 geography, the very first chapter, that is geography as a discipline. Now after doing so many classes of geography, we'll be starting back from a scratch. So we'll talk about geography as a discipline. Now this is something that we have covered towards the starting. Geography as a subject, or as a name we can say, is derived from two words, that is geos plus graphis. And this is the Greek word where geos means earth and graphis means to describe. So what Eratosthenes tried to explain was that geography basically is the description of the earth. Now whatever is happening on the surface of the earth would be a part and parcel of geography. Now this could happen over the years where we talk about the historical aspects. So we'll be taking inputs from history. We can talk about how man evolved. So we would be taking inputs from anthropology, so on and so forth. So we'll see later how that goes on. However, for now, when we say whatever we describe on the earth's surface is a part of geography, we talk about predominantly the spatial variations or the changes that occur on the landform. So any change that occurs on the surface of the earth or within the interior of the earth would be a part of geography. Now nowadays you have many modern skills that we are using to understand and explore the various aspects for geography. Some of the tools include GIS, that's the Geographical Information System. Then you have remote sensing, aerial photography, computer cartography are some of the basic techniques. Now map is one of the very essential components in geography. And what does map help us to do? Map, in very simple terms, I can say represents a tabular data into a spatial or a graphical data. So anything which is mentioned on the table would be represented on a map or a outline or a sketch of a nation, and that is what we understand by means of map. Now what type of variations we understand under geography? We understand variations which are related to physical features. We understand variations which are related to social features, which are related to cultural features, so on and so forth. Now again, if I say you have a Himalayan range that is running to the north of the India, you have passes within that Himalayan range which allowed invaders to come into the territory of India, and through these passes you had foreign invasions or foreigners who moved into India, and therefore we have a kind of cultural assimilation with other nations or the other regions of the world. Now whatever is found in one region is different from what is found in another region. So let's say the coast of Kerala would be rich in coconuts. You would have the whole of the coast of India which would be rich in the production of rice, which would be rich in the production of fishery. However, if I move on to the desert area of Rajasthan, you won't find fishery as a economic activity there. So no fishing activities would be found there. So what is happening? There is kind of regional variation that occurs within the space, and that variation is known as areal differentiation. So you have areas which are differentiated based on the type of the economic activity, based on the functions, based on the physical characteristics of that region, and they could be based on any other certain parameters that we can talk about. Now what are the geographical phenomena? When we talk about any geographical phenomena, it's a kind of cause and effect relationship. So let's say you have evolution of Himalayas. So you had the Tethys river, you had the Gondwana land, you had the Angara land, and then you had the filling of the Tethys sea that we talk about, and finally you had the folds that evolved into the mighty Himalayas. So what is happening here? There is a cause and effect relationship that exists between the existence of the sea and then folding of the mountains. So you had pressure coming up from both the sides, which led to the formation of fold mountains. So there is always a cause and effect relationship, Geography itself cannot be separated in terms of, let's say we can talk only about the landforms, we can totally ignore the people who are living on the landforms. That cannot be possible. So geography is a summation of both the physical factors as well as the human factors. However, in the previous years or in the past years, past centuries when we talk about, it was predominated by the environmental control. So we can say environment used to control the way the people should live or the way the people should work around. So let's say if there is a kind of plantation that should be grown into an area, it was all dependent on the region. So if the region was forest region, the people used to work as gatherers and hunters in the region. If the region was a kind of grassland area, the people used to work for the activities, say animal rearing. So what is happening is the environment predominated the phase, and that therefore that era we had the environmentalism that was predominated. However, later on with technological innovations, we saw that we could manipulate the environment for our own reasons. So let's say if you have a desert area, let's say you have a map of India, and we'll talk about a simple example like interlinking of rivers. So what would happen here? You would have a dry area and an area which has ample of rains coming, and you have plenty mighty rivers flowing there. So you would have a kind of connection from the areas which are rich water resources to an area which is scarce in water resource. So what we are doing here is we are manipulating the environment, and that is something that comes under the idea of possibilism. So we are exploring opportunities to develop by means of technology. We are changing or trying to manipulate or trying to make the environment convenient for us. So those are the two approaches that we usually talk under geographical phenomena. However, both of these approaches are dynamic in nature. Geography as a subject is dynamic in nature. So we always talk about interactive processes. These interactive processes can be with the changing shape of the earth. You have the changing seasons. You can have the change in the landforms. So all the active rising mountains, volcanoes, earthquakes. So these are active, interactive based on the physical features. When we talk the same in terms of human features, you again have the activity that human being is involved with. So human beings can come up with the environment by means of two ways, either adapting to the environment or modifying the environment based on one's requirement. So whenever we talk about geography as a whole, there are few things we try to understand. So the first aspect is spatial. When we talk about history, we say it's temporal. We understand the timeline and how things happen, the chronology. However, in geography we talk about space, and when we talk about space, we first see how the things are organized. So the organization of the things. So that's the spatial organization. Now how this one interacts with this four would be a kind of spatial interaction between different areas. So let's say an area which is agricultural rich will interact with an area which is industrially sound, so that you have exchange of commodities, and the agro-based industries which are located here could get the agricultural raw material and finally supply the finished product. So you need a spatial synthesis, a spatial interaction, and finally based on the spatial organization and the spatial interaction, you will have the spatial synthesis for the region. Again, there are three terms that we predominantly talk about when we talk about the geography as a whole, that is what, where and why. So what is grown, let's say when we talk about agricultural geography, we will say what is grown, where it is grown and why it is grown. So what are the conditions or what are the suitable criteria for growing the crop. Now again, as we said, geography is a summation of numerous subjects, and when we talk about this, we can say it's a jack of all trades. So you have a little from each and every subject that comes under geography. Now this geography we can broadly define it as physical and human geography. So all those which relate to the physical features would go under physical geography, and those relating to human feature would go under human geography. So let's say you have, from economics you derive economic geography, from demography you derive population, from political science you have political geography, from history you have historical geography in human. And similarly, when we talk about physical, from geology we derive geomorphology, from meteorology we derive climatology, from hydrology we have oceanography, so on and so forth. So what we can say broadly is there exists a kind of osmotic relationship. What does osmosis say? Osmotic relationship basically try to explain. So what happens if you put a raisin in a cup of water? It would absorb water and swell. Similarly, you have a kind of osmotic relationship that exists within geography and other subjects. So what it does is it allows inflow from each and every subject. So it is allowing inflow from geology, from hydrology, from history, from sociology and so on. But at the same time, it allows each subject to maintain its individuality. So each subject, let's say geology, hydrology, history, sociology, are maintained or have their own individuality. However, when we talk about geographical aspects, we try to bring in the aspects from these streams. So when we explain the various approaches, we say there are two predominant approaches. The first is the systematic approach and the next is the regional approach. Systematic approach was laid forward by Humboldt. He tried to explain systematic geography as a kind of general geography which considers everything as a whole or the phenomena as a whole, and all the typologies are identified based on the wholeness. However, when we talk about regional geography, which was given by Ritter, he tried to explain that there are various regions that exist and every region has a hierarchical level that is maintained. When we talk about a kind of intermingling of these or exchange of information from these two, we say there is a dualism in geography that exists. Now this is how we classify the systematic geography. Under systematic geography, so this is the classification for systematic geography. The next would be the classification for regional geography. Under systematic geography, you have broadly the physical and the human geography, as we said. Under physical geography, you have four basic streams, that is geomorphology, study of land features, climatology, study of climatic features, hydrology related to water and ocean features, and finally soil geography or biogeography related to the soil features and the flora and fauna. The next is the human geography. Human geography is classified as social or cultural geography, population geography, historical geography, political geography and economic geography. Under population geography, we can say we have rural and urban geography. Under economic geography, we can further say we have geography related to agriculture, to industry, to transport, to trade, infrastructure and services. So these are the broad categories under economic geography. However, where there is an interface of physical and human geography, you try to have a biogeography, and this biogeography would have inputs from soil geography as well. And this biogeography could be classified as the flora and fauna, as we said, where you have the soil geography or the biogeography which are close to one another, and you would have the plant geography, zoogeography, biology and the biogeography, and that's the environmental geography where you will talk about the environmental changes. Now, be it either physical geography or human geography, which are streams of systematic geography, or on the other hand let it be regional geography, for all of these there are few principles which are common, and these are the principles of geographical thought and human ecology. When we say geographical thought, we consider the history of geography or the geographical thought as the mother of the geography, which forms the basis or the foundation for each and every element in the geography. And finally human ecology, which talks about the interaction of human beings with the land. Again, you have the following methods which are both used in the systematic geography as well as regional geography, which is cartography, field geography, quantitative methods, and geoinformatics, which includes GIS, GPS and LIS. So these are some of the techniques that we use. Now moving on to the regional geography as propounded by Reiter. Under regional geography, we classify 4 basic categories. That's the development of the region, the regional studies. Now when we say regional studies, it could be a very small area, let's say a village, a district and a state. So therefore we have the micro level, the meso level and the macro level studies. Then you have the analysis based on the region, whether this is a kind of progressive region, it's a kind of backward region. And finally, based on these, you have a regional planning, which could be either the urban planning, which we also call as town planning, or we say country planning or the rural planning. So these are the basic branches of geography that we try to understand, and we'll be talking about the next chapter in the further class. So you can subscribe to our channel for more updates. Have a good day ahead.